Come on in.
Appreciate it. Thank
Of
you.
course. How are you doing today?
I am good. How are
Good.
you?
I'm good. You can actually sit back. You
Okay.
can get comfortable. You don't have
Alrighty.
to be really close to it. I have this turned
Fabulous.
over so I can work the levels. If you don't mind just saying name, how you know Stephen while I have the headphones on just so I can listen.
Hello, my name is Kimberly Williams, and Stephen Dees is my brother.
Welcome to Echoes of Addiction, a deep personal exploration of how addiction impacts not only the individual but also the people who love them. This series begins with an interview with Stephen Dees, who shares his journey through addiction and recovery. Through intimate conversations with his wife, sister, and mentor, this podcast uncovers the lasting consequences of addiction before, during, and after recovery. Their stories reveal that the struggle doesn't end with sobriety. It leaves an imprint on every relationship and every stage of life. Just starting off, what is your earliest memory, so as young as you can imagine, with your brother Stephen?
When we lived in the apartment with my grandfather and my mother, I remember him being there. I'm certain he was in other, but I don't have memories of it. You know, living with my dad in the little house with the stepmom when we were I was like 3, so he'd have been 4.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You guys are 11 months apart, right?
We are 11 months, yeah.
Okay.
I'm October 26 and he's November 11. So.
And when you guys were kids, were you guys close, or do you remember the relationship you had when you were that age, those younger ages?
I do not. I don't really remember a lot about those ages. I know as we got into the foster care system, I think my perspective was survival. I was in survival mode. I'm going to do whatever I have to get through the process. So we weren't really close. He would run away a lot during that time. I wish we would have had a better relationship, but we didn't. When we got out of the foster home living with my stepmom in Florida, he was angry. So angry. He couldn't lose a game. I mean, he started losing in Uno, and he'd be like losing his mind.
He mentioned that he could remember there being beer cans, just different drugs around. Do you ever remember that between your mom, your stepmom, your dad, during any of your childhood? Do you remember there being drugs or alcohol around?
Not in my younger years, but in the 4th grade on up, I do recall, you know, there was drugs. There was, my dad was an alcoholic, so there was actually alcohol, you know. He would wait by the window. Is he in a good mood? Did he drink beer? Or did he drink the other kind of thing? So that was that.
Yeah. Stephen mentioned that it made him angry. Did you have any emotions towards maybe your family members or their relationship with these drugs, or was it always survival mode from the beginning to the end?
I did not. I wasn't angry. It was just like, okay, this is what you do. This is growing up. This is how the house is run. And you know, sometimes Dad's drunk and mean, and sometimes Dad's drunk and fun. Yeah, I remember having fun and him chasing us. And I have a bad thing that I got from my aunt. You know, you laugh too hard, you pee your pants. My aunt would do the same thing, my Aunt Patty. So, you know, and I didn't realize that, but I'd be laughing. He's like, you're just like your Aunt Patty.
When you guys were younger, you went to California, you came back, then you kind of got separated. Do you remember that separation, even to the specific day? Do you remember just being away from Stephen, and did you even think about him after you guys were separated?
But I don't remember us being separated after California. I do remember we were in the foster home, and then we went to live with my mom, my stepmom, and my father in Coral Springs. That was the best years with my stepmom for me. Dad, he was still in his own little world, being an alcoholic and being a drug addict. But during those years, he was so angry. And then all of a sudden, I remember him getting into fights and just I was so scared running home because somebody was beating him up and I couldn't even scream. I'm like, I just couldn't get it out because I was so scared for him. And then all of a sudden he was gone. And it was like, okay, where'd he go? What's going on here? Okay, this is how it goes. You know, you're together and then you're not. That's how it was with my little sister. We were together and then we weren't. And then he came back into the picture and when I was in 8th grade, and he was still angry. He was still hostile. I would see him intermittently throughout the years, but I always wondered, you know, what happened to him.
When you guys separated and you went with your dad and your stepmom,
Okay,
what
so
made the decision for you guys to go and him not to come with you?
I really am not sure because I was only in 4th grade, so I'm living in my own little world, doing my own little thing, and he was just gone. And me and my sister were there. So I think what they did is they just said, you can take him because they couldn't control him. He was angry, he was hostile. So they let him go and kept me and my sister. And me and my sister lived there until I was in 8th grade.
And then from 8th grade on, I know now you live in Florida
Yeah.
with your husband. Kind of what was that time like without Steven, and now you're living in Florida and kind of your life now?
Okay. Oh gosh, there's a lot. Between in 6th grade we moved to Ocala, and from 6th grade to 8th grade, there was a lot of sexual abuse in the home, drugs, it was a crazy time. And I'm, 12, 15, between those ages, I'm stuck between a child and an adult world. So I'm trying, between both worlds, especially with all the sexual abuse that was going on. In 8th grade, my mom, who left us when I was at the apartment, I got in touch with her and moved in with her for a year, my birth mom. So I lived with her for a year, and Stephen had lived there for a while, but he was gone by the time I got there.
Okay.
Yeah. So I lived there for a year, and then when I left there, I went back to Florida, and I lived with the man who had abused my sister and I sexually those years. I moved in with him because I wasn't going to live with my stepmom. And the older I get and the more I learn, she is her mom. She's her mom. Her mom was angry and hostile too. I moved in with the old man, and I lived with him until I was 18. And then I moved to Kentucky, met my first husband, had my daughter. He wanted a divorce. And I stayed up there for a while, about 20 years in Kentucky total. And then I moved to Florida, and it's so much better. Life is so good. I remember in 2010, I just got with my husband, and I pulled it up on the computer, and Stephen Dees, just wonder what's going on with my brother. And there was the picture of him, the last prison picture, and it was sad. It was the saddest. That's what broke my heart. That's when I was just like, I had lost all hope at that moment. Looking at that picture.
From before you had seen that picture, did you ever wonder where he was? Did you have an idea of where he was, or did you ever think, is my brother still alive?
I never wondered if he was still alive, but I always wondered where he was. You'd go to Mom's, and have you heard anything? Every once in a while, you'd hear a little something that would pop in. He'd catch up with Mom and say something, or my sister, Treva, but it was never, I wondered. I went out searching. I wasn't going to go look because he was so angry and hostile all the time. I was actually afraid of him. So, I didn't want to be bullied or be hated on, and you would wonder and you would worry. But what can you do?
Did you ever blame your mom, her husband, or your dad, your stepmom, for maybe his anger or why he was the way he was? Did you ever put blame on anyone else, or did you just think, that's him?
That's him.
That's him from...
That's him. He's taken after my dad. I remember the first time he called me, I was with Craig, and the first time he ever called me, and I don't know how he got my number. I don't remember. It could have been through Facebook. I don't remember. And my heart sunk. I'm like, what is he gonna want? Because anytime he ever got in touch with me, it was for an object, an item, money, something, always a need. And I actually talked to him on the phone, and he told me he got married. This must have been in 16, and he's with a great woman. He was doing much better, not on the drugs. And I get off the phone, and I'm floored. I'm just like, what?
He's back.
He didn't ask me for nothing.
When he was in prison, out of prison, in his teen years, early 20s, those times, you mentioned he would call you, he would ask for things, so you would hear from him, but it wasn't because he wanted a relationship, it was because he wanted something. Okay.
Can you pay my rent? Can you send me money? I'm in jail. I mean, I have letters when he was in jail that he wrote.
And did you follow through with anything, or just kind of...
No, I did pay his rent one time. He wanted me to pay for like 3 months, and I said, I can pay 1 month of rent, and he was very disappointed when I did that, because I didn't give him 10 grand, but I gave him what I had. I tried to help. Can you send me money? It's like, if I had the money to send, it wouldn't be a problem. Or, okay, so this is my problem. In my personality, I'm a giver. And I was shocked. I was like, I'm going to do what? So when you're actually doing a personality test and it says that you're a giver, I had to read the definition. You don't mind giving, but you want to know where your money's going. I don't want to support a habit. I don't want to support something that is not going to benefit you. That's the type of giver I am.
Gotcha. Got that call. He's out of prison. He has a wife.
Yeah.
When was the first time you actually saw him?
Oh my gosh, that was so beautiful. I want to say, and I could be wrong. Yes, that is right. The first time I seen him after he got out of prison and had married me, my father, my other sister Kristen and her husband, my husband, and my Aunt Becky, which is really my father's niece, but she was raised as his sister, so we just call her Aunt Becky. She knows all that. So anyway, we got a place in Tennessee, and we all came up so that Stephen could be reunited with me and my sister and my dad, and I still have the picture of the first hug I got after so many years of being apart. That was beautiful. That was beautiful, yeah.
And what were those conversations like the first time? Were you guys just catching up?
Yeah, we were just catching up, talking, just enjoying one another. I think Stephen was looking for a little more acceptance from my dad, but my dad had a hard time with emotional stuff. But my dad wasn't drinking at the time, so that was a blessing. He had done quit drinking, and it was a beautiful weekend of just like, who are you? Where have you been? What's going on? Where are you at now? So, yeah.
After all the times he was angry at you, angry at family members, all the times he potentially bullied you, what allowed you to accept him in that moment when you easily could have turned the cold shoulder, lived your life in Florida, and not wanted to meet him again and see how he was?
Jesus. Honestly. I mean, the Word of God, you start reading the Word of God, and it says you have to forgive, you have to, and I'm just like, okay, I'm going to walk into this, and I'm going to have faith. You have me, Father, whether it's good or it's bad, I know you will take care of it. Mm-hmm. What a blessing.
Yeah, absolutely. So what does your relationship with Stephen look like now?
Oh my gosh. If I were really having trouble, he'd be my first person. I'd be like, okay, we need to go lay hands. He's an ordained minister, so yeah, he'd be doing some healing.
And how often do you guys get to see each other?
We see each other multiple times throughout the year, just depending on his schedule and my schedule, and things change and stuff happens. When I go to Kentucky, I typically will stop, at least say hi, have a meal, stay the night, something, and then go see my daughter in Kentucky. So we see each other multiple times throughout the year.
So everything that's happened in your life, all the ups, the downs, not being close, now you're close again. Do you have any regrets yourself, or do you blame anyone for anything that you went through?
No. In reality, at first you're angry and you're like, why was my life this way? And I found Jesus. And, in the book of, I think it's Genesis. It's in the book of Genesis. It talks about a gentleman named Joseph. Mm-hmm. And Joseph's brothers threw him into a pit. They were going to kill him. And one of the other brothers was like, well, let's not do that. Let's not kill him. We'll sell him. Look, these guys are coming. We're going to sell him. So we'll sell him to those. And then, so they did. They sold him to these guys. And then he was a slave to this man. And he was in the house, Potiphar's wife, the first, real housewife. She was lonely and she needed some attention. So she was going to get it from Joseph. And Joseph is like, you're the king's wife. I am out of here. I'm not doing that. And so Joseph ran out of the house and she grabbed his coat. He tried to rape me. They threw him into prison. He spent 7 years in prison. And after 7 years in prison, if you read the story, he becomes second in command of Egypt. Mm-hmm. Second in command. So, the Lord has a way of letting you see that even though he allowed you to walk the path that you're on and the hardships that you went through, he's going to use them. He's used them for my good. I've grown from that. I've learned from that. I've loved from that. I have forgiven from that. And now I'm at a peace. I don't live in the shame and the guilt and the yuck that was associated with all those years of my life. So Jesus really does bring freedom. And if somebody would have pulled Joseph out of that pit and saved him, he never would have made it to second in command.
Wow, that is so beautiful. If someone's listening to this right now, and in your instance as a family member or a sibling, someone that they grew up with that has struggled or is struggling with substance abuse, what would you tell them from your perspective if you could go back in time at either when you were a young child or when you were teens and he was calling you coming back? What would you say to them?
I would tell them, focus on your health and your mental stability. You cannot change them until they want to be changed. You cannot do anything for them until they want something done. And pray. Spend time in prayer, because that is who's going to get to them. Nobody changes your heart except Jesus. Nobody can really go in and change you and who you are and your desires except Jesus.
As Kimberly reflects on the long shadow of addiction cast over her family, we begin to understand the complex layers of Stephen's journey. But family isn't the only place where those challenges show up. On the next episode of Echoes of Addiction, we hear from Stephen's wife, Dees. Coming from a very different background, Catherine met Stephen after he reached recovery. But that didn't mean their relationship was without struggle. She opens up about love, trust, and the reality of building a life with someone still healing.